So even though I'm a biomedical engineering professor most of the time, I still see patients every now and then as a pediatrician who specializes in cancer and blood diseases. So a few years ago, one morning I was doing patient rounds on the cancer ward in the Children's Hospital, and I happened to have with me one of my undergrads, a biomedical engineering undergraduate who was shadowing me. The first patient we were going to see, it was a 13-year-old girl with leukemia who was hospitalized for an infection. So before we entered the room, my student asked me if she's allowed to interact with the patient. I said, sure, why not? But then I smugly add, but let me kind of drive the initial conversation, right? I'm the pro, I'm the expert, right? In the room is the patient, her mother, her nurse, and a hospital teacher who's staffed by the hospitals to help kids who miss a lot of school. I introduced myself and my student to everyone in the room, and the patient just completely ignores me, right? So, okay, great. The nurse then tells me that she's not taking her meds today because she's too tired. Right? So I walk up to her bed, and I say, hey, we need you to take your meds if you want to get better, okay? She looks at me, rolls her eyes, completely ignores me even more. I said, okay, great. Whereupon, my undergrad then comes up from behind me, goes up to the girl and says, hey, we need you to take your meds if you want to get better, okay? And that sounded pretty familiar to me because those were the exact same words I just said. But the girl this time perked up and said, okay. I said, So the hospital teacher then comes up to me and says she's actually leaving the room because the girl wasn't up to working on math, which is a subject, unfortunately, she's doing pretty poorly on. But then the girl perks up even more and points to my undergrad and says, hey, can she do my math with me? The hospital teacher then points to my undergrad and looks at me and says, you have any more of those? And I was like, yeah, I do, like 1,200 actually. So if you have kids, you know that the people they respect the most aren't their parents, far from it, right? But people just a little bit older than them, right? Young adults, right? But what does this have to do with education? Well, modern medical technology has made my job as a pediatric hematologist or oncologist a lot easier, right? Diseases of childhood that were once death sentences just decades ago are now either completely curable or can be managed as chronic diseases. For example, cases of pediatric cancer, 75% of all cases can be cured. However, we're now dealing with the consequences of what it means for kids to live, often for many years, with a debilitating disease like sickle cell disease, cancer, or cystic fibrosis. These diseases might not kill as many children as they used to, but they still make their lives harder, make it harder to learn. So what this means then is we have this ever-growing population, a community, if you will, of chronically ill children and teens who are struggling in school. How can we improve their academic performance? How can we keep them engaged, keep them learning? How can we help them not only survive, but succeed? So around 5 years ago, we designed a new course. And by we, I mean biomedical engineering faculty, hospital teachers, hospital administrators, physicians, but most importantly, a handful of really passionate undergraduates. Our course enables engineering undergrads, the same people I just told you about, that the kids actually listen to, deliver hands-on STEM activities to chronically ill children and teens right in the hospital and in the clinic. So we call this course Health Reach. On paper, Health Reach is a 3-credit-hour design course in which undergrads use a problem-based learning approach. But it's much more than that. Patients get critical exposure to STEM, and the engineering undergrads get invaluable real-world experience. We task the undergrads to make simple but elegant, hands-on, manipulative-based STEM activities in which the human body or specific disease is the teaching platform. They always have a specific customer, an individual chronically ill child or teen in mind. So they're allowed to be true engineers, right? They're constantly and iteratively designing, developing, and deploying their scientific activities for these patients. One team of undergrads came up with an activity called Make Your Own Blood. So with a jar, corn syrup, and some beads, they use it as a model for blood. And with this very simple tool, our undergrads have taught grade school kids with leukemia what blood is composed of. They've taught middle school kids with anemia the basic concepts of circumference, area, diameter, pi. And they've taught high school kids with sickle cell disease the fundamentals of kinematics and viscosity. So through HealthReach, our undergrads learn to flexibly communicate at a variety of levels based on the patient's or customer's need, which is an important skill for any engineer. In addition, HealthReach also applies a pedagogical technique we use in medical schools to teach medical procedures. It's called see one, do one, teach one, in which teaching reinforces learning. So in our case, in HealthReach, our undergrads actually solidify their own STEM knowledge as they teach it in their own hands-on activities. So the undergrads remain and are the driving force behind HealthReach. They look at what resources are available to them to push the program to where it needs to go to create the most societal value. For example, when they discovered that friends and siblings of these chronically ill kids were deriving just as much benefit as the patients themselves, they decided we could bring value to the Atlanta community outside of the hospital setting. So HealthReach is now extended into several Atlanta area elementary and middle schools. And our undergrads have actually won several community service awards for this very specific activity. Our students are also developing a remote version of HealthReach using social media platforms to remotely communicate their STEM activities. And the students are now exploring how to track the patient's academic metrics over time to assess HealthReach as an academic intervention. So these really exemplify the curiosity and connections tenets of Keen's entrepreneurial mindset. HealthReach also has created value. So over 4 years, we've serviced 135 undergrads who in turn have serviced 600 patients and 600 Atlanta middle schoolers. Also, half of our undergrads are aiming for medical school after graduation. HealthReach gives them meaningful patient interactions that aren't accessible to them as a traditional hospital volunteer. So I'll leave you with just 2 personal responses we've received recently. So one is from a mother of a girl with sickle cell disease. My daughter was in jeopardy of being held back at the end of the school year, something we were both scared of. However, my daughter was able to remotely use Google Hangout and FaceTime for HealthReach activities in the car and in the waiting rooms. She loved her time with her Georgia Tech tutor. At the end of the school year, my daughter was able to bring up her grades and was promoted to 8th grade. We are forever grateful for the time and dedication you gave my daughter. The second is from one of our undergrads who took our HealthReach course, and this was an unprompted note to me, and mind you, it was sent to me after grades were already submitted, so unbiased, right? So I truly cannot thank you enough for giving me the opportunity to take this course. I can say that HealthReach has been the most unique course I've ever taken. Unlike most courses at Georgia Tech, HealthReach is the perfect opportunity for us as students to give back to our community and see the impact we are having directly. And with the mission to promote education and happiness in the community, HealthReach is a major reason our school is so unique and has the #1 biomedical engineering program in the nation. Thank you again, and I'll forever cherish my memories as a member of this course and organization. So that is, after all, what this is all about. Thank you.